Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session, Geocoding Deep Dive Tips and Power Features. Before we get started, I have a quick housekeeping items. Yes, so all build sessions are recorded, so you should be able to watch after each sessions. Captions are available in multiple languages if you need. If you got questions, please submit your questions through the Zoom Q&A features. You will see the little button under the screen Q&A. Feel free to submit your question there so our speaker will be able to answer after the presentation. Lastly, it's day 5. If you want to explore more sessions, the past 4 days, feel free to go back to Zoom event lobby to watch the recording or explore what else for today. All right, that's all for logistic. Let's get into the good stuff.
Thank
So,
you, Bang.
yeah, thank you, Akshitha. Thank you. I'm gonna hand over to you to kick things off.
Yep, thank you, Bang. Hello, everybody. So this session is going to be about geocoding deep dive. I'm Akshitha, engineering manager for Geocoding API search. And we also have Dima, who's the lead engineer on the search team. For the agenda, I'm going to start briefly about what are the products within the search portfolio, followed by an overview of what the geocoding product is, and one of the top questions asked by customers, like what's the difference between geocoding and search box? Search box is a different product under search. And when would you use geocoding product and when would you use search box product? I want to clarify that because that's been a very common question. Followed by uh, a brief feature demo by Dima about the enhancements we've done over this year uh, within the geocoding product. And then at the last, we'll give some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, keep them ready to share with us, and we'll try our best to answer them. Moving on, so our search portfolio has two main products, two main APIs, which is the geocoding API and the search box API. When do you use these different APIs? We'll talk about it later in the session, but we also have different client libraries which have features such as address autofill. And if you just want to plug in these into your application using JS or mobile SDKs, you have client libraries for them. And all of that documentation is available for you at docs.mapbox.com search. So feel free to go and explore more about the APIs and the client libraries so you can just integrate them within your application and start using the product. It's a great product to start with. So within geocoding, we have both forward geocoding and reverse geocoding. Forward geocoding refers to if you type in an address, you get the coordinates as the response. And reverse geocoding is when you enter the coordinates themselves, you get an address in return, similar to what you see in the screenshots here. On the left, when you type in an address 260 California Street, you are taken to a point on the map. And if you look at the response, I'll show you later in this session, you will be able to view the coordinates. And on the right, you see that when you write in your latitudes and longitudes, you get different suggestions for the addresses, and you can choose one of them, which is feel appropriate. Moving on, like what are the most common use cases? Where would you use geocoding? It's gonna be in all of these use cases. These are just few of the use cases that I've mentioned here, the most common ones, but there are many other use cases. So depending on your business use case, you can explore the geocoding product. One of the main ones is the checkout forms and address registrations, where you have to enter an address during a registration. If you have a business need for it, this is a great product. So once you start typing address, and if you use the address autofill feature, after you type about 3 to 4 characters, it starts providing you autocomplete addresses, like the top addresses around that region. Um, and then the other use case is going to be for geospatial analysis. So anything for your BI dashboards, you could use this product. Then you have, and if you have a need for a service locator, so say you have your business at multiple locations and you want the client customers to search at a specific PIN code or zip code, that's where you have you can use geocoding behind the scenes under service locator. The one of the huge one is asset and fleet tracking. So if you have fleets that have been traveling all over the country, you could use geocoding behind the scenes to keep tracking where your fleet is. And then if you just want to search around a location, just go to maps. And if you write uh, if you don't have to give an exact location here, so just give the name of the city or probably your street name. So you could just zoom through to that location and just search around what's there. And the last one I want to talk about is the on-demand logistics. This is when you have a delivery to make, for example, and you have to write between 2 points. You'll have to know the two coordinates of the points so that you can get a routable point. So just getting the coordinates itself, the right coordinates, is the key to be delivering at the right location, and that's what the geocoding product does. Moving on, so what's available within the Mapbox geocoding service? Why does it stand out? The main reason is it has a very comprehensive coverage, and it has and the locations you are it provides you locations that you are searching for with precision. That's the main reason you have to go with the Mapbox geocoding. Uh, there are additional features such as permanent geocoding, which is you do not have to keep calling the geocoding API for the same request every time. Rather, it also gives you a feature where you can save them within your application or within your cache, so you don't have to always hit the API. If this would be helpful when you have to use when you need low latency within your application and things like that. The other one would be batch geocoding. So let's say it's not a user type query, but it's something that you have to process in the background. That's when you could use batch geocoding, and it allows you to process up to 1,000 queries per request. So you can call multiple batches. And there are two new features that we've added within the product, which is unit level geocoding. Right now, this is only in US, but we will be expanding to all other countries. And why do you need a unit level geocoding? Is when you have large uh, housing complexes with multiple units and they are spread across a huge area, usually having knowing the unit itself when you're searching for it gives you the right location very close to the unit so that you don't have to drive around or search around those big complexes, but rather it gives you a precise location for it. The other one we've added is routable points. Routable points is a coordinate location that you would have in the geocoding response itself. Um, and this can be used if when you have to drive to that location, you can use the routable points. In future, we might be adding entrance points as well, which provides you the location very close to the entrance points, especially used for deliveries. So how can you explore more about the geocoding API or the geocoding product itself? You can go to docs.mapbox.com/API/search/geocoding, and you will have details about the geocoding API. Or on the same page, you will also have a playground. And using this playground, you can play around what's happening. You can play around with the product itself. You can use both the forward and the reverse. You also have an additional one which is structured. So instead of typing the whole address in forward, you can use it in structure. At this point, let me go on to playground so you have a brief, you know what's happening here. So this is the playground that you would see on the docs.mapbox.com/playground/geocoding. I'm just going to make this full screen. And for forward, let's say, so this is where we also have search by proximity point. So uh, say you want to search for an address close to a specific location, that's where you move your proximity point. And your proximity point can either be, you do not have to choose, it's an optional field, or you can provide a coordinates that's pretty close to it. So right now, let me go to an apartment complex I know, and let me provide that address and see what it takes me to. So I'm looking at Tampa, Florida, and I've provided an address that's an apartment complex right here. And as you see, these are all the buildings of the apartment complex. And when I type the address, I get results on the right side as a dropdown. You can also start enabling autocomplete here. You can limit the number of uh, responses that you get. Right now it's set to 5, so whatever you type, you get at the max 5 um, closest approximate locations. And if you want to use permanent geocoding, as discussed earlier, you can enable it. So every time I search for it, and on the right, you can see that this was the request and I have a response. Right now, for this query, I have about 4 responses, and that's what is shown under features. And let me go a little, dive deep a little into what features are. And among features, you have like what information about the address result itself. This is the information about the first result in your data set, followed by second, third, and fourth. And under properties, you have coordinates, and under coordinates, you have routable points. This is what I explained about having the most closest routable point within your application. So let's say you want to deliver something outside of just the address point, which could be a rooftop point, usually because rooftop has the strongest precisions. If you want to drive through it, you would want to use the routable points response from the API. Along with that, you have match codes, like depending on what you've typed, what are the match codes that we matched. And under context, you have uh, under addresses, you'll have your address, your street, your postal code. And let me add a unit to this, the new feature that we've added. And say I'm just typing in apartment A for it. Let me move on to the response. And you see that under context, you have secondary addresses. That's where you can find your unit designate units and the designator for it. Providing this provides you the exact location within a large apartment complex. That's where I would stop unless any of you have questions. Do type them in the chat box so I can answer them. moving on, I wanted to answer the one main question that most of our customers have asked, like, what's the difference between geocoding product and the search box product? So search box at an overview is another product within Mapbox under search. Un, Under the hood, search box federates all of the geocoding requests to the geocoding API itself, which means search box is a wrapper around geocoding, but it does not just provide geocoding, but also provides um, other features, which is it also has points of interest like what are the hotels, restaurants, parkings, um, and if you're just driving to a location and you want to search for your closest EV, and you're driving in an EV car and you want to look for the closest EV charger, all of that information about point of interest are available in search box. So when would you use geocoding and when would you use search box? It totally depends on your business use case. So if your use case only involves event registrations or fleet tracking or locator maps, that's when you would go with geocoding product. But you can, but if your requirement is to also search for, say, a coffee shop when you're driving around, uh, a hotel if you want to stay for or take a break, that's when you would go with Searchbox. Searchbox is relatively a new product by Mapbox, but it's a great product which you should check out if you have a requirement for points of interest data. The other main feature that we have for geocoding, which is not available on Searchbox, is permanent storage. As as part of geocoding, you have permanent storage option because most of the times the address location wouldn't change, and that's the reason it allows for it. While for Searchbox, it updates more frequently. So your point of interest might be updated um, more frequently than just your address locations, and that's the reason we do not have permanent storage as of today. We also have batch processing on geocoding, but on Searchbox, you do not have it just because um, it's a more complex product and it provides you information. So it keeps updating the information for you, and hence, just having a batch request is not that usable on Searchbox. But if you're looking for searching for a specific brand, restaurant when you're driving, you could just go to search box and say McDonald's, and it gives you the closest locations of McDonald's near you. As mentioned, search box also has the point of interest search. With that, I will hand it over to Dima.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Dima and I'm software engineer in our geocoding team. And today I'll talk about a few ML initiatives that we started and working right now. First, just to be on the same page, let's talk about a few problems that we have. Could you switch to the next slide, please? Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's talk about problems that we have and that we're trying to solve with our ML initiatives. First problem, of course, and it's the biggest problem, it's spelling errors. When people type addresses, they can mistype something or they just type something correctly. They can, like, as we see in first example, they can, for example, forget to add a space between, for example, street and sun. They forget to add a space, and it's a huge problem for engine to recognize this type of problem. Next problem, it's non-address tokens. For example, people can copy the address from somewhere from other sites and then just paste it to a search, and the address can have an extra information that is not really belongs to an address. Like we see in this example, the address has POI information, like a Dr. Allison, and has a geo context marker, like a in San Francisco. But when we do actual search, this in can be a real problem for search engine. Search engine will try to, consider in as some abbreviation, or will try to match it with Indiana, and it will provide a lot of problems for the engine to find correct address. Next example, it's a unit detection. This problem can look simple for first look, it's just, let's just find the information in the user query about what user want to serve. But in different countries, people use different format for units. And even in one country, people can create a lot of ways how to provide unit information. Like we see in this example, people can type 1/45, or can type flat 1, or in US, we can type apartment #105. And there is a lot of examples in different countries, and people create really creative, and they can provide even more different ways how to type units. And we want to find that information and provide right address that user trying to search. And last problem here that I want to talk about, it's ranking. For example, can look simple. Yeah, people trying to search London, but where is London? Is it London in Britain? Or, we have a lot of, if you try to search London, in reality, we have a lot of Londons in world, and there's even a lot of Londons in US. And each of them we should show to a user, because if you live in some London in US and you will always type London, you don't want to see London in Great Britain. It will provide you a bad user experience. You'll have to type more characters in your search to find your search in your London in US, instead of just type your street name, house number, and London, and then see your actual address that you're trying to search. Yeah, switch to the next slide, please. Yeah, and now let's talk about solution. So it's a few solutions to be more accurate that we use to solve these type of problems. First, of course, it's spell correction. We've created ML model that gets a user request, and then the model spell corrected. It's a first phase. When we get a user query, we spell corrected, and in this example, we see that the model corrected mistake in United States. The user typed extra S letter, and the model corrected it. Next step, it's annotation. We created a model that can get a user query and find, annotate each token in a user query. For example, like we see here, the model find address number 132, street direction, POI, unit info, postcode, country, every token, every part of the user query was correctly annotated with corresponding type. And then the information will be sent to our geocoding engine, and geocoding engine will decide each information we should use and how we should use it to find correct address. And now we are going to our last part. It's our ranker. Yeah, before we use just heuristic, we name it heuristic ranker that we've created. It's a really difficult piece of code where we have like a lot of parameters and a lot of hard-coded values, how we should rank the information. Like I just imagine as the example that I provided before, London, okay, how we can rank all Londons across the world to provide better information for user. We can of course consider like a proximity. We could consider populations in the cities. We could create some extra ranker parameters and so on and so on. There is a lot of different information that we used to actually rank the data. But it was, as I said before, it was really complicated. It didn't work for all use cases. It was difficult to provide experience for users in different countries. And we introduced ML Ranker. ML Ranker, it's a model that was trained on real users. Every time when user selects something, we send the telemetry information about it to our servers, and later we use it to train the model what users actually selected. And model can get all that parameters, all that information about each address, about user query, about user proximity, and so on and so on, and then select order results correctly to what really user selects from experience that the model gets during training. And now we see here two examples. It's what we had as a result when we tried to search this address before all these ML initiatives. We just see New York country as a result. But now, after we applied all these ML models, we see real, like a rooftop secondary address that the users tried to find. Yeah, that's all from me.
All right, thank you, Dima. Thank you, Akshitha. I think we have some time for Q&A. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to submit your questions through the Zoo Q&A features. You will see the little button here. I think there's a question from the chat. Let me all right. First question. When should I use the temporary geocoding endpoint versus a permanent geocoding endpoint? I think that's a question probably for you.
Yes, Wayne. So when would you use permanent and when would you use temporary? You can use permanent if you do not need to know uh, the geocoding location very frequently. So that's where, like, if you're just looking for an address and you just need the lat longs, the coordinates of it, that's when you go with permanent geocoding. You need to go with temporary geocoding mainly when for fleet tracking, for example. You want to keep track of where the fleet's going. At every point, you need to know exactly where the fleet is. And that's where you would go with like the temporary geocoding.
Awesome. Thank you. And another question about, we talk about the quality of the result, how we make sure we have good, relevant result. The question is more like that. What are the most important parts of the response to determine the quality of the Mapbox result?
Yep. I just want to highlight that we are always working on improving the quality of the geocoding all over the world. And for your question, we have a lot of metrics internal, although we share very little in your response itself. But in your response, if you remember, when I was showing the API playground, I showed you the match code and it says matched, not matched. And it also gives you a confidence like how confident is your output compared to your query. So you could use the feature related to match codes as well as the confidence within it to know the quality of the geocode.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Thank you. I think we're just on time. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for joining for the deep dive. It says make both. Oh, I think we just get a quick question from the audience. Okay. I think we can, Atika, we can respond to him maybe through email for their questions. Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We will follow up with those questions we could not answer today. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the build. Thank you.